Are you on? Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Alice and this is English with Alice B, where you can come to learn English in a clear and simple way without the stress. So today's lesson is actually inspired by my boyfriend, my fiancé, in fact. He is from Barcelona, so he's Catalan. In fact, Catalan is his first language. He speaks Spanish too, of course. English is his third language. He studied English, like a lot of schools in Europe, in high school, and then he didn't follow much after this. I don't think he studied it anymore after this. When we met, his English was a little basic. It was better than he would say, but it definitely wasn't the level that it's at now. Now, after over 18 months of being together, obviously he speaks English every day and his level has greatly improved. But there's a particular mistake that he keeps making, and it always catches my attention because to me as a native speaker, these differences seem so clear in my head, but I see in him that he's really struggling to remember the difference between some of these phrases. So he is my inspiration for the video of today. Thank you. But I've also noticed some of my students make similar mistakes as well. So today I'm going to talk to you about the differences between I used to, I am used to, and I usually. So these words are a little bit similar, one, because they actually look and sound a little bit similar, but two, also because they talk about or they're referencing habits in some sort of way, things that we are familiar with. So I'm going to break down how we use each one and what actually is the difference between the three. Okay, let's talk English.
So let's take a look at the two that cause the most confusion. I used to, or I am used to. And it should be obvious to everyone why people confuse these often. They look almost identical. In fact, the only difference is that I am used to has the verb to be, the am. But we'll talk about this in more detail. Let's look at I used to. This doesn't change depending on the subject. I used to, you used to, he or she used to, everybody used to. And then you say the verb in the infinitive form. So I used to live in Manchester. She didn't use to be a teacher. So here we have the negative form. We used to go to the cinema. When you say used to, this is because you are talking about something that was true in the past, something that was a habit or something that happened repeatedly in the past, but today it doesn't happen. Whether you use it in a positive or a negative way, whatever it is that you're saying is not true today. The opposite is true today. So, for example, I used to live in Manchester, but now I don't. She didn't used to be a teacher, now she is. We used to go to the cinema. We don't go now. So when you use used to, it's because you're talking about a habit, an action that was repeated in the past, but that doesn't happen today. So, how do we use I am used to? So, first of all, it's important to note that this does change a little bit depending on the subject because we're using the verb to be. So, I am used to, but you are used to. He or she is used to. We, they are used to. So, that's one important thing to remember. So, how do we use this? If I want to tell you that I am used to something or I am used to doing something, I will express it exactly like this. The verb must be in the ing form. I am used to working long hours. Always the verb in the ing form. You can just use a noun. She is used to spicy food. We are not used to cold weather. So we can put this in a negative way as well, of course. When we say that we are used to something, what we mean is we are familiar with this situation. We are familiar with this thing. I'm used to working long hours because this has been my routine for the past 10 years. I am familiar with this. If I use this in a negative way and I say that I am not used to something, this is because I am not familiar with the situation. We are not used to cold weather, means this is quite new for me. This is not something I'm familiar with. Even this is not something I'm comfortable with. I am not used to it. So it's a very important difference. I used to is about a past habit. I am used to is about something that I am familiar with today. If you would like to pause the video at this stage and just take a few more seconds looking at the grammar here, feel free. Now we're going to go into some detail about how to use usually.
Usually is an adverb of frequency. It describes how often we do something, right? And it's on the higher scale. It's not always, but it's definitely on the I do this more often than not side. For example, I might say, I usually wake up at 8 o'clock. In the mornings, I usually have a coffee first thing. At the weekends, we usually go to the beach. And I can use this in the past as well. When I lived in Manchester, I usually ate fish and chips every Friday. So this is when something maybe happens. If I could give you a value, I would say it happens, between 65 to 75% of the time. It's a usual occurrence. It's something that happens with quite high frequency. I usually eat. We usually go. It usually rains. You're describing how often a verb happens. The mistake that my partner makes often is he confuses usually with I am used to, because they're both about familiarity with something, right? If I usually have a coffee when I wake up, this is my routine, this is my habit, this is something that I'm familiar with. I am used to is something a little bit different. So let's get into this one. Let's talk about I am used to. So we have to use the subject, the verb to be, and then used to. So I am used to, but you are used to. She is used to. And then a verb in its ing form, or a noun. For example, I am used to waking up early. So every day I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I am used to this. It's not a problem for me. It's not something new and strange for me. Because it's a part of my routine and because it's ingrained into my habit, I am used to this. And if you want to use a verb, it has to be in the ing form. I'm used to waking up early. I'm used to doing sports in the cold. He is used to eating spicy food. My partner and I, we are used to speaking in English. It's a habit for us. It's something that's normal. It's not something that we find difficult. If I wanted to just use a noun and not a verb, I could absolutely do that. For example, I could say, I'm from Manchester, so I'm used to the cold weather. I love going to concerts, so I am used to loud noises. In each of these examples, I'm explaining a habit or a situation that the subject is familiar with, and it's not a new thing for them, or it's not a problem for them because they are accustomed to it. They are used to it. So then our final one, I used to, and then the verb, I used to do something. This is about a habit, but in the past. It's not something that you do anymore. You don't need to clarify that you don't do this thing anymore. We understand because you used I used to. For example, if I say I used to smoke, you understand that this was a past habit. This was an action that I used to do in the past and is not necessary for me to say, but now I don't. I used to smoke. I used to live in Manchester, but now I don't. I used to be a waitress, but now I am not. We used to take Spanish classes together. They used to go to school together. We used to live in a smaller apartment. In each of these examples, you understand that whatever action it is that I'm saying that I used to do or I used to be, now is not true. We must note that when you say used to, it's not to be used instead of the past simple. It's not for something that you did once. For example, if I smoked one cigarette in my life, I wouldn't say I used to smoke. I would say, I tried a cigarette, or I smoked one cigarette in my life. I used to smoke, or I used to do something. It was habitual. It was something that was repetitive, or something that happened for a long time. For example, I used to live in Manchester. Okay, in my life, I have lived in Manchester one time, but it was for 24 years. It was a long, continuous thing. So I used to live in Manchester. Now I don't. With each of these examples, you can also use it in a negative way. So I might say, for example, if we want to come back to usually, I don't usually drink tea in the mornings. I do not usually drink tea. We don't usually watch scary movies. If you want to say, I am not familiar with something, or I am not accustomed to something, you can say, oh, I'm not used to it. I've just started going to the gym. I'm finding it difficult to put it into my routine. I'm just not used to it yet. I'm not used to it. Or, of course, if something wasn't a habit or wasn't a routine in the past, but now it is, we can say, oh, I didn't used to. So I didn't used to speak Italian, but now I do. I didn't used to live in Barcelona, but now I do. So like I said at the beginning of the video, it's really clear to me why people confuse these often. They're all talking about being accustomed to something in some way or being used to something. So it's clear. It's so clear why people confuse these. But when you make a mistake with these, especially if you're talking to native English speakers, it just sounds so clear. It's a mistake that kind of we hear immediately. So I hope that made a lot of sense. Of course, if you need to go back and repeat this lesson and read some of the notes, absolutely, I advise it. Thanks again for watching and for spending your time with me. Let me know in the comments what you think. Were these differences clear to you? Did you know them already? Don't forget to check the vocabulary bank below in case some of the words I've used today have been a little bit difficult. And I'll see you next time. Bye.